Hello, and welcome to Seeds of Wisdom brought to you by From a Loving Place with author Rachel Wolf. I'm Rachel Wolf, and today I am so excited to have the brilliant author Marlene Wagman-Geller here to talk about the power of persistence. Marlene, will you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Well, thank you so much for that great introduction. Um, well, my name is Marlene Wagman-Geller, and one of the things I want to be talking about, the pedal of wisdom, is persistence, because I had a dream of seeing my name on the spine of the book since I was a little kid in my frozen wonderland of my hometown of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And it was always my lifelong dream to publish a book, but I had to wait and wait. And I think sometimes the difference between people who publish books and people who don't publish books is they didn't say, I can't deal with the rejections. I just can't deal with this anymore. And, rejections in writing, thick skin is just part of the publishing process. And you don't let the naysayers or the rejection slips serve as detriment. So that would be my message in terms of your wonderful affirming, program.
Oh, thank you. Well, and I want everybody to know exactly what it took for you to get published the first time.
Well, the initial thing was, I remember, was 2008, and I had just read the book Peyton Place by Grace Metalius. And just by happenstance, the book opened up to the dedication page, and it said, "To George for all the reasons he knows so well." So my inner Yenta was immediately piqued, and I go, "Who is George, and what was the reasons he knows so well?" So I went to the internet to research it, and George was her husband, a long-suffering husband. And as I was finding out the story, I realized that one little line in the dedication page was as intriguing as the novel itself. So my sort of eureka moment was to say, well, that would be a really good book to take all the classic dedications and once again, of The Great Gatsby, The Sun Also Rises, and who did they dedicate it to? Because the author truly enters the confession in those four little black words on a white page. And I remember I told my husband, I want to write a book on, the story behind the dedications. And he said, well, don't quit your day job. I remember that. And I said, well, I'm not quitting my day job. I was a high school English teacher, but I started sending out I knew that in order to publish, you needed a literary agent. I was astute enough to know that. And I literally sent out 100 query letters. I got that 94 rejections. I got 6 responses. And that was my first book, which I called Once Again to Zelda, The Stories Behind Literature's Most Intriguing Dedications. And that was in 2008. And I have 11 books now because I didn't give up.
Now, what was it like for you in it when you were in it, getting the rejections? I mean, what kept you going in that?
Well, I just thought like publication is like love. You just need one to accept you. It's not the 99 that reject you in life. It's the one that accepts you that mattered. And my philosophy is failing doesn't matter. It's not making the attempt that does. So I said, well, at least I'll give it my damnedest. I'll leave no stone overturned. And I also felt like, rejection is part of the game. I knew how difficult it was to get an agent. So so I finally hooked up with an agent in New York City, and a good agent has the right contacts. And 3 days later, I had a deal with Penguin Publishing. And I remember I said to my husband, does Penguin Publishing mean anything to you? And he goes, you know, but, and that's another thing, never listen to the naysayers, because at the beginning he said, Well, the reason you won't publish is because you have a BA, you're competing against people with PhDs. You went to a no-name university in Canada called York. They went to Yale, the big with the ivy coming down. And, you're a little school teacher in the Mexican border. Like, who are you? But you can't listen to the naysayers. You can't listen to your own interior naysayer. And I used to tell my students, dreams don't just have to be for sleeping. And I truly believe that. Sometimes if you persist hard enough, the dream can become the waking reality.
Oh my gosh, there are so many nuggets of wisdom in that one stretch. I just love it. And it's just so true about the naysayers and people who don't get it and get your commitment and passion towards the project. It's our hearts, it's our souls, it's our calling that helps keeping us going. And
Exactly. Like I think it was Mark Twain. He said, "Oh, writing's no problem. You just sit down and open a vein, and that's your ink." But and that's why sometimes I never write really negative reviews on Amazon or Goodreads, because I just say, the old, if you don't have something nice to say, because an author, gives the blood, sweat, and tears. And when somebody dismisses it, it's like, but then even then you realize, okay, that's all right. It's better to be talked about than not talked about, even if it's negative. That's okay. I got another review. It's all right.
yes, no, you had one of the books, Women Who Launch, is has it's still running strong. When did you publish that one?
Woman Who Launched was about, I think, 3 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I still see it popping up everywhere. I mean, I'm always so impressed every time I see it. And then um the newest one comes out, well, by the time this airs, it will have just come out the week before. So, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the publication date was pushed up a week, so it should be out in a week. But my book that's coming out this month is called The Secret Lives of Royal Women. And so it just, as it says, it's like encapsulated biographies of the famous royal people, but sort of a peek into their palace, sort of to see, what it was really like. And it's sort of, yeah. So when I did have some members of the British royal family, like Camilla and Diana, Kate and Diana, etc. But I also did ancient queens from other countries and cultures, because royals have been around with us since the biblical era. Queen Esther, it's always been around since the biblical era, and from all different cultures and climes. So I just took 36 of these sort of famous and infamous royals.
Uh and talk about, when it comes to your power of persistence in the biographies that you write, these mini biographies, what I'm always amazed by is how you tend to get these facts that you don't read about in places like
Well, well,
regular history books or
well,
anything. I'm
that's
always fascinated by that, of how you can dig the way you do.
Well, the thing is, I want my books not to be an academic treatise, because unless somebody's going for their PhD and it's a scholarly pursuit, they don't want, so I try to find things that are really interesting or not known or dig below the surface, because if the fact is already well known, nobody's going to want to read it. And if it's too esoteric, it's going to, people also, they're reading for entertainment, and so they're also not going to be interested. So yeah, I do try to, and a lot of my research is to uncover, because what's fascinating is what's not known as opposed to what's known.
Oh, it is. I
And
had
try
I
to
had got blessed enough to read The Unabashed Women, and it's the stories of infamous women. And so it was the all these cool stories about people that, many of us only see these glimpses of, and got to dive into them and to see who they were as a person. It wasn't just the facade character, the mask. And
Mhm.
that's what
I
I really liked. And the persistence that you have to be able to keep digging. I
well,
mean, what gets you to keep digging?
Well, I think one of the commonalities of all my 11 books, it's a story under the story. So it's like that first book, I had to be, a dedication detective. Why, like when they wrote that book, why did they choose that person? And it was very revealing about themselves, what they wrote and their dedication. But that was sort of the story behind the book. Like, you want to know the stories where people enter the confessional. You want to know, like, that inner spot, shine the inner spotlight of truth. And I tried to infuse a little humor, because sometimes the books or the stories are a little bit, biographies tend to be, even on the surface, if you look at people, they might have such charm lives on the surface, but you look a little deeper. And because sometimes they deal with, negatives, I try to, infuse a little humor when possible.
Well, and that's what one of the things that really stood out for me is because I love reading. I love reading all kinds of books, but memoirs, self-help, all that kind of stuff. But one of the things that I always struggled with is if I don't see the human behind the person writing it, if I don't see their struggle, I used to shame myself because I wasn't where they were. Like I would just see their mask and I would judge myself against this perfect being that's being explained. And so that's one of the things I love about what you do is that you rip that down
Well,
so
yeah,
that you can see the person, so that you could see that they're human.
exactly. Because even, I mean, that's what the Shakespearean definition of a hero was. They're so perfect and flawless. I mean, they're so perfect, but everybody has one essential flaw, one frailty, which gives them their humanity, which gives them their unique voice. And as a biographer, that's one of the things I want to do, let their voice and their unique story be told. So it's not just, so I start off getting the skeleton, which is just the compilation of facts, but then you put the flesh on them, the humanizing. And there's a saying, to know all is to understand all, and sometimes we forgive them when we know the background.
Now, I love that. What do you do to help you keep up your energy to keep doing it? I mean, you're in 11 books and you keep going.
Well,
What do you do to keep yourself motivated, and what inspires you to keep doing it?
Well, I believe there's a lot of difference between happy and unhappy people. But for me, one of the distinctions is to have a purpose. If you have a passion, doesn't matter what it is, a purpose, it doesn't matter what it is. It sort of adds technicolor to the black and white of every day. And for me, it's the writing. So no matter what's going on in my personal life, when I sit at the computer, I'm able to focus. I'm able to get out of myself. It's sort of like whatever gets you through the night. So it's not really that. So one is, I do have a lot of discipline. So I will sit down and I'll say, and and so I think what makes me do it is, A, I have a lot of discipline, and B, I learned in life you can't get something without giving something else up. So especially, I wrote all my books when I was a full-time teacher. So I had to work all day. And then I came home after teaching high school, whatever the kids didn't take from me, the teenage hormones, and I had a little margin of time left. So I had to be very, very dedicated, and sit down and say, you don't stand up until 3 more hours. But then I gave things up. Like, I used to go to the movies. I used to watch TV. I used to have friends. I used to have, things like that. But I couldn't, work full time, do that, and have the other things. But in retrospect, do I mind giving it up? Absolutely not, because it gave me that passion, it gave me that purpose, it gave me something to believe in. And I believe that, Benjamin Franklin once said, never let the sun go down on an idle day. And maybe I'm sounding like the ultimate killjoy. Probably I am. But nevertheless, that's why I'm able to do it, because when you love what you do, then it's not really work. So people say, well, how do you sit and write 4 hours after school and 8 hours on the weekend? It's because it's what I like to do. And
Mm-hmm.
and that's just so I'm fortunate I found my purpose.
Well, and I mean, you said the word that goes right to my heart is passion. And to have passion about something, whatever it is, that it gets your energy running. I mean, it's
Exactly.
amazing what happens and the energy we find you know, in all kinds of strange places to do it, because like our minds don't go away from it.
Exactly. And it's so important to have your personal passion, whatever it may be, because in a way, we can't really count on others. Relationships are sometimes finite. Children grow up and go away. The husband changes you for the younger model. I mean, whatever the case may be. But if you have something that's uniquely yours, then it doesn't matter if you're an empty nester. It doesn't matter if you are retired. It doesn't matter if your relationship didn't work out, because you have something that is intrinsic to yourself. So I really find, especially for women, I find that women, they're told so much to be selfless. Be the daughter, be the wife, be the mother, be the caregiver. And the problem with that is, then if you wear yourself down to a nub, there's nothing left. And I think we have to go against the old fashioned mindset. You're supposed to be selfless. And you say, no, you can be selfish too. You can have some little core that belongs just to you. And I think that's what gets you through, the turbulent times.
Well, and that's us putting our oxygen masks on us first.
Well,
It's
that's a
that's
great
how we
analogy.
serve other people, is by taking care of ourselves. Because if we're running deflated, we're not even able to give love to
Yes, I
that
love that
extent.
analogy. I
Yeah.
was using that oxygen masks first. It's true, because if you're not whole, if you're not sort of salvageable yourself, how do you save other people? And I think when you're trying to be super mom, I'm from Canada, so I say mom. Okay, if you're trying to be super mom, or you're trying to be, the step 40 and woman, then something has to give.
Yeah. And that's it for me. I know that with all the things I get hit with, if I do not take care of myself, it's just I lose like I slowly deplete everything. Even my passion gets depleted. And so I'm like, no, no, not worth it.
Right. So even you're doing these podcasts. So that's something that you like doing. I know you're a mother of two. So I know, you could be busy too. I can imagine two teenage hormones. That must be a lot to deal with, but you're still
Yes.
carving out time because this is your passion, or, I'm sure it must be one of them.
Oh, yeah.
And then you get to meet people and you get a vista into other lives. And we can't just, because I noticed even for myself when my daughter was growing up, the mothers who were like, they had the perfect lunch pails and they went to every PTA meeting. But then the kid grows up and all you were the mother. You just looked at your own life. You were just out of the prism of being a mother. And inevitably, the kid goes away and then you're left with a vacuum. And it's hard to fill vacuums at will.
Yeah, and trying to find yourself again, because you lost, like, and that's one of the things that I had come across, is I had at one point felt like an empty shell, and I was like, oh wow, this is not good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I had to start rebuilding myself from inside out, because I felt so empty. And but that persistence to build that is what helped me get to where I am now. Um,
100%. And also another thing is sometimes, being human nature, we can't, especially on Facebook, you can't help but look at all these people have perfect lives. Like, like, oh, I'm going on this dream vacation with my millionaire husband and my model children and the Ivy League schools. And so but then if you have something, okay, well, maybe they have those things, but now with my writing, but I have something too. And so you have to look, I think, in life, which you do. I think one of the things it saves you from a signpost of insanity is you look what you have, not what you don't have, and capitalize on it. And and that's why, and especially with publishing, it's such a multi-pronged fork, because not only when I first went into publishing, I thought, oh, a dream of dreams, I published a book, wow. But then there's so many unexpected perks, like my path and yours would never have met. And I've met so many absolutely wonderful people. I've had so many interesting experiences. And had I said, no, I can't work all day and then work this, and you're right, I am nobody from nowheres. I am from York, I'm from a little tundra town in Canada. But, because I didn't, I said, well, at least I'm going to try. And now I have this, and it's sort of inviolate. Nobody can take it. And that brings us back to the beginning, the persistence, the power of persistence. I truly believe in the power of persistence. And one of my books was called Still I Rise, the power of the persistence of phenomenal woman. And that was the whole premise of Still I Rise. I took these women with the title, of course, from Maya Angelou. So I showcased all these women. Their lives were basically, if they were just had nothing going for them, but they refused to let bow down. So I took Maya Angelou, Still I Rise, from her poem. And if you take Maya Angelou, she was born in 1920s, and she was at the bottom of the social hierarchy. She was the Depression. She had no money. She was in a day when Black women were at the bottom. On top of that, she was raped by her mother's boyfriend. Her uncles killed the guy who did that to her. And then she felt, I shouldn't have told. And she literally did not speak for 5 years. And then she turned, and then when President Clinton had his inauguration, she was chosen as the poet laureate of the country. And one of the things I mentioned, Clinton said to her, hey, not bad for two kids from the wrong side of the Arkansas track. So the premise of that book is to show, yes, everything can be wrong for me, everything. And I can throw the world's biggest pity party, and nobody will care. Everybody will just want to stay away from me. Actually, I can say, okay, I can't go further down because I'm at the bottom. I can only go north. And that was the Still I Rise. And I actually got the idea from that book is I met this woman by happenstance, and because her world and mine were so different, and she had like everything that could go wrong for, like, everybody in her family was addicted to drugs. Oh yeah, my husband's in jail for addiction. My daughter, the baby was born, everything. And then I love words, and she was telling me all these things, and I wanted to reach down for this pearl of wisdom, but all I could say to her is, "Oh, I'm sorry." And she said to me, like, she had Billy Bob teeth, but anyways, she said to me, "Hell, I'm still here." And I was driving home. It resonated, those words. Hell, I'm still here. And if this woman who life has treated her horribly since she was probably a fetus, if she can still say, "Hell, I'm still here," that I thought was the book Still I Rise. And it really gave me succor researching these women. And that's the subtitle, The Persistence of Phenomenal Woman. And by persisting, by nature, you are phenomenal.
Oh, and with that, we have to end our episode. Thank you so much, Marlene, for coming on. I'm so happy to have you here. And
Thank you, Rachel. And you're a natural born, I just have to tell you, you're a natural born interviewer. Because when I don't feel comfortable with an interviewer and they ask me my name, I look like it's a trick question. I go, oh, I'll get back to you. But honestly, Rachel, with you, it's like I'm Zooming with my girlfriend, my old friend. So
oh,
you
thank
had
you.
that power to make me feel so comfortable, like I was Zooming with my friend.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been such an honor and a pleasure. And
And
we will
thank you
see
until I can ever meet you in person.
I know.
I'm so glad we got to meet.
Thank you. Me too.
Okay. Bye, Rachel.
Make sure to follow the links that accompany this episode. You will learn a lot more about today's guest and see what they have going on now. You will also get all the links to follow them on their journeys if this seed resonates with you. If you like what you heard, remember to like, follow, and subscribe to FromALovingPlace.com and all its platforms. Remember to come back next week for another Seed of Wisdom.